Did you know that it's your right as an American citizen to own a minigun? That's right, it turns out the Second Amendment is the Cain and Abel of the amendments. Minute in words, deep as the Marianas Trench in its scope. Welcome to the Midnight Sun. Joining me today is Robbie Mills and Alex Fincher, and today we're going to be discussing the never discussed but constantly touted Second Amendment. So, to get things started, Robbie, if you could, go ahead and read us the exact text.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Perfect. So, fairly simple, not too much there. I think what people focus on most, obviously, is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I think that's the most common focus, so we can discuss that. That's kind of the main, that's sort of the main meat of, I guess, what we're talking about here is the gun ownership rights, because we do have a national military. We have, 4 branches of it. And not to mention, I think that I get a feeling that it's not written in it, but I think that a certain element of it is, like we've talked about, if there's ever an invasion, foreign invasion into the United States, the continental United States, that's when it's like, dude, you're not just fighting an army, you're fighting the citizenry, because we're all strapped. Like, I mean, by and large, I'm not saying every single American owns a gun.
But there are more guns in America than there are people.
That's very true. It's very true.
I forget exactly where I heard it, but it was back during World War II. It was, at least I believe it was among the Japanese leadership, military generals and whatnot. They were discussing the prospects of actually invading the United States mainland.
Yeah.
And they were well aware of the amount of gun owners in the country, and especially around that time when it was more just a natural thing. Like, it was never just really this hot button issue as it is today.
Yeah.
But they said, we wouldn't just be fighting the United States Army. We'd be fighting against the U.S. populace as well, which everybody in their grandma has a gun. So.
Yeah, especially when you talk about states like where we are, like Texas.
Yeah.
Southern states generally are the ones that are more. It's your coastal states that are more, I guess, stricter on gun ownership and because it is a states' rights issue on how you deal with it. Being able to get a gun is the federal law. Like, every U.S. citizen has to be able to get. So, and it's not even to keep and bear guns; it's to keep and bear arms.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that a little later. Like, does that cover a tank? Which, in my opinion, it doesn't, because a tank is a vehicle first, and it's got a cannon on it. So that I think that's where. But we can get into that a little later.
Fun fact here: there are more guns than people in the United States. 40 million are in circulation for a population of 330 million. In just the first 6 months of 2020. Approximately 19 million firearms have been sold, representing more than one firearm for every 20 Americans.
Those numbers didn't seem to add up, though. It says 300 some odd million, and then there's only, after all that, about 55, 60 million guns in circulation. Is that for citizens or for gun owners, like registered gun owners? Because that's. Hey, let me see the stat. Let me see that. There are more guns. I thought you said 40 million. 400 million.
400 million for, a population of 330 million.
Oh my god. That's a lot of guns. You got your collectors out there too.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your collectors out there too. So
in today's atmosphere with all these BLM Antifa riots, I mean, more and more people who generally are on the fence about the whole issue are seeing the relevance of it, and there's a lot of first time gun owners this year.
Oh, I know. That, and not even the riots going on in 2020, but when coronavirus first hit, when the pandemic first hit U.S. shores, and like you saw the videos of people like getting in fist fights over chicken and toilet paper.
Yeah,
like it. Dude, look, man, when I heard that people were getting in fist fights over chicken, I'm like, well, that's caveman behavior. That's meat. You're fighting for the resource. When it was toilet paper, I'm like, you're gonna
corona, not dysentery.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing I never got, just sort of veering off topic. I never understood rioting over toilet paper. I never understood the violence and shit and all the craze, just the craze, let's call it that in general, over the toilet paper.
It was the craze over the possibility of what could happen. I think it was a fear move.
Well, dude, I mean,
that's why people got guns as well, because
that's one thing. That's
somebody like trying to attack you while
come to your house and steal your toilet paper. Like,
fucking no, not at a Walmart or something. You know what I mean?
Oh no, totally.
Protect yourself.
But what is it?
Number one ranked Texas gun owners.
Oh yeah, number of guns registered.
25,000.
And that's up almost 300,000 from the next state, which of course is the stand your ground state, Florida, at 400. So 725,000, just a little over.
Do it bigger.
Oh yeah, Texas. See, that was one thing that I've always loved about living in Texas, even when I was like 19, 20, 21, a little more ignorant to the state of everything and the nature of everything. I always was like, yeah, you know what? I carry around a baton, but in the same token, I'm glad I live in a state where I know that the guy to my left is strapped, and the guy to my right is, given probability, the guy to my left is strapped, the guy to my right might be. And personally, I live in it's a subdivision, it's a suburb, so it's not like we're going around shooting each other for toilet paper and meat and shit like that. It's somebody starts walking through the neighborhood that ought not be here, and I don't mean a protester, I mean like a North Korean cell of like infantry, something like that. We have a minor defense, which I kind of think that's part and parcel of a well-regulated militia. Like, I don't know the exact. Now again, the amendment was written. That one was written as part of the Bill of Rights. So it was one of the earlier fashioned ones. So they're probably thinking in the context of if British redcoats, the King's police can have them, then so can we. That's what was different about their society versus ours. So I think that's part and parcel of it. However, well-regulated militia, I also think has to do with the military, and it's well, I mean that's one thing I guess we could get in first is sort of like what the not the genesis of it, not where it comes from, but like what the thought process was to why people should be able to keep and bear arms, why the citizenry should be able to keep and bear arms, and that's sort of my thing is you got people coming from an essentially tyrannical monarchy, where only the official guard or the official authorities, whatever, could legally have firearms. They're like, no, we can't have that. So I mean, if somebody, it's Fourth Amendment is no illegal searches and seizures, if I'm not mistaken. So you got to be able to protect against unconstitutional acts, even at gunpoint. So that's a big part of the genesis for me. Commentary by all means, please.
Well, I mean, so yeah, I would agree. Essentially, just even over time, and I mean, we see this with other countries throughout history, that one of the first things to go is gun ownership before tyranny can really set in. So I mean that is really, I mean, First, Second Amendment, just the foundations of the U.S. Constitution makes it so unique in this world that there's no country that's like us, and the fact that a lot of mainstream news is trying to talk about how, I mean, I get it that there's this idea of American exceptionalism. However, it's I mean, it really is true that we have opportunities here that just many countries do not, and with these freedoms that are afforded to us, I mean, it even says right there in the Second Amendment, like, it shall not be infringed. But essentially, I mean, a lot of people try to make this an alarmist kind of thing. How do we know, or that essentially I've heard a lot that you have some of these people running for office talking about, nobody's going to take your guns, nobody's going to take your guns. Well, then we see them actually come out and talk about instituting something similar to the Australian buyback, or having authorities really go into your house and actually physically remove your guns with or without your permission.
I was gonna say, like, the buyback in Australia. I need to do more research into it. I know that the buyback that you're talking about, where they got rid of the guns, was when they had the what was at that point the world's biggest massacre ever. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 12 or 14 dead, and then about 24 wounded.
Mm-hmm.
And what was a crazy event. It really was, because a lot of the consensus was, we don't know what set this guy off.
Yeah.
But, there were obviously, they were able to look into his life. There were these conditions and all that kind of stuff. But they were like, we really don't know what set him into a rampage like that. But if I'm not mistaken, the buyback in Australia was mandated.
Yeah.
Like, it was you are giving up the, X, Y, and Z guns.
Yeah.
And we will reimburse you for them. Lately, it's been that's been the big debacle with ARs. If I'm not AR-15s, if I'm not mistaken, is that was the weapon of choice for a lot of mass shooters. Not all of them. I'm not saying it was all of them, because a lot of them have been perpetrated with handguns.
Yeah, that's
a lot of them have been perpetrated with handguns. But you're capable. We all know this. You're capable of firing off more rounds in one go with an AR than you are with a handgun.
Mm-hmm.
Handguns typically go anywhere from 8 to 16 rounds per mag, whereas an AR, the standard is 30.
Yeah.
So there is that. But
there was one aspect of at least the nomenclature of the term buyback that I thought was kind of redundant. Because the government never purchased the guns in the first place. It was actually the citizens. So really, it was just more of like an active disarmament as opposed to buying back. At least just wanted to call attention to the use of the language there. We even see today, a lot of people say, like, well, gun crime has gone down. Well, for the most part, violent crime, it hasn't really had much effect, and it really only serves to disarm the law-abiding citizens. I mean, you look at the statistics of knife crimes, for example, in England.
That's a big one, yeah.
Whether or not it was perpetrated by refugees or just
well, it doesn't matter. You have a statistic of knife crime, and it just you're making a good. And I think this is your point: is that regardless of what the means available are, violent criminals, people who are going to engage in criminal behavior, are still going to do that.
Yeah.
Regardless of like what means they have to do it. If I want a
knife or a rock or
if I want to kill somebody, if all I have is like a shard of glass, I'm going to kill someone with a shard of glass. Yeah. So it really doesn't matter what they have at their disposal.
Martial arts. I mean, you can just do it with your bare hands.
Yeah.
2007 2008, there was a total of 104,782 firearms bought back, around 7% of the country's estimated total number of firearms.
Is that in America?
As well as, no, this is in Australia.
Oh, okay.
Argentina.
This is Argentina, okay. You don't hear a whole lot of terror coming out of Argentina. I think they're just kind of chilling.
Lately. As far as I know, they had a military coup a while back. I forget the details exactly.
Let's see, gun laws in Australia. There's been 28 state and territory-based amenities since... the Port Arthur Massacre in... 96. It wasn't 94, it was 96. Which ran from October 1996. It was held for 12 months. They retrieved 650,000 guns. The 2003 handgun buyback ran for 6 months and retrieved 68,727 guns. Both involved compensation paid by owners... by owners of firearms, made illegal by gun law changes. Okay, so that's what they did. What they did was they changed the law, and then you couldn't fault the citizens for owning something that was just kind of grandfathered in, it was just there. So what they did was all people who came and turned them in. I wonder what they did with people who had registered ownership of what was then made an illegal firearm and didn't turn it in. Like, I'm wondering how they handled that, because this is just a brief synopsis of it in Australia.
Philadelphia tried to do a buyback.
in 1968 and 72. Good luck, buddy. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. 544 guns. They got 544 guns. Australia got in the hundreds of thousands that American citizens were like, nope, not doing it. Mm-mm.
That's hilarious.
Hey, man, that's like, this is one that it's like, I can't ever disagree with it because the way the Constitution's functioned up until now has been pretty stellar. Yeah. Like, it's been pretty good, so...
Obviously, no system is perfect.
Oh, no system is ever going to be perfect, man. Unless you're playing a... You know what system is perfect? Ark. Because you're the only human on that fucking island, and so there's no one else there to fuck it up. But that's video game talk. We'll get into that a little later. So... I don't know why I was looking at my notes, but wow, I'm tripping on that stat. That's funny. 544 guns. And that was over the course of 3 different buyback programs, if I'm not mistaken from what I read. Right? It was like they instituted them. They had 1968, 72, and 74 retrieving 544 guns. So that was 3 buyback programs that existed through a period of 6 years, and they managed to get 544 guns.
In 74, they were offering $50 for each gun.
$50? $50? I've been to a shooting range, dude. I know how much those things cost. $50? You go fuck yourself.
You said this was 54?
74, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, maybe a little bit of inflation to take into account, but still, that's...
Inflation? Even back then, I'm sure that the gun costs like...
Still, keyword little bit. I didn't say that was a fair price.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I'm like, hold on, buddy.
It's like, well, I mean, for example, it's like anytime a sports team wants to build a new stadium, they basically, if they're just going to bulldoze a couple of neighborhoods and businesses, they offer you probably like a third of what your business is worth, and that's all you're going to get. Eminent domain, all that.
You could be one of those hard asses, like when you see like a fucking like a 2-story house in LA and it's between 2 skyscrapers.
Yeah,
that's the motherfucker that was like, nope. Not moving.
Staying here.
Not moving. So that's I can't get over that 544.
No, it's pretty hilarious.
That is, especially after reading that Aussie stat.
Wonder how many guns were in circulation at that time. That might play a part.
Yeah, what if it was like we got 544 out of like 8,000 guns, and it's like, oh, that's a pretty big majority, but this is America. And I know for a fact 8,000 was probably the amount circulating in that county. So like, I don't think, that, and I mean, so okay, here, let me ask this. Let's just kind of dip into like the legal issues of it. Number one, we're not going to do anything pertaining to assault rifles. I don't want to go into that whole fucking conversation of assault rifle. We're going to use automatic and semi-automatic.
Yeah.
Just for the purposes of this conversation. We're not doing that whole, is it an assault rifle, is it not? Any weapon is an assault weapon because you're using the weapon to assault whatever your target is.
Yeah.
So we're not going into that thing. But let's start with my original point. This is just my one little fun question. Does it cover tanks? Do you think it covers cannons? Mm-hmm. We know this. It covers cannons. So does it cover a tank? What do you thought? I personally don't think it does because I think a tank is a vehicle, and you have to have a state issued license to operate a fucking car.
Yeah.
So a tank, I think, requires its own licensure to drive.
I would imagine there would be some regulations about whether or not the cannon on the tank could even work. I mean, because I imagine driving one would be okay. But the real issue would be about its...
can you aim that cannon and blow some shit up?
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough.
I think I saw a video a while back. There was a guy who actually made a homemade tank and went on a rampage. I don't remember if it was like in Indiana.
Oh my God.
No, I'm dead serious. Like it was.
Like did he kill people? Did he manage to actually?
He was shooting at people with it.
With that big fucking the big gun. Because I know tanks, a lot of them will on the top have a mounted like 50 cal turret or something like that. Like
I couldn't remember.
You looking that up?
Yeah.
Yeah, please do. Like
I couldn't remember if he actually had designed like an actual cannon on it, or if he just had some little slits on the side of the tank that he was using small arms fire out of.
I think he had that because I think that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It probably happened when I was overseas and I just wasn't paying attention to American media as much.
I think the narrative of the story was just a guy had a really bad day and just decided to take it out on the entire town.
Guy has bad day, takes it out on town with tank.
All it takes is one bad day.
Yeah. Joker.
Mm-hmm.
For real though, dude, like, that's nuts. Because I think I heard something about that. That is nuts. See, and that's where mental health issues come into the Second Amendment. And that's a really fine line to draw. Because somebody with mild bipolar symptoms, like they don't experience a lot of ups and downs, but they have a technical diagnosis. Let's say it's somebody who they have it under control. They're generally in control, but there's still the propensity to like go way up or way down.
Not seeing that one, but apparently in 59, hold on. There's a guy that was an American plumber and U.S. Army vet who stole a tank from the U.S. National Guard Armory in San Diego, California, and went on a rampage on May 17th, 1995. He destroyed cars, fire hydrants, and an RV before being shot and killed by police officers.
Holy shit! Oh my god, that guy stole a tank from the National Guard.
Jeez.
Number one, the National Guard needs to up its security if that happened.
I'm sure they did.
I fucking hope so. Like, pardon the French, but oh my god.
Oh, man.
Wow. Wow. Alright, that's... Oh, so he was born in 55. Is that what it was? Like you
yeah.
Okay,
He was
like
born.
okay, so he was like 4 years old.
The time he was born, the time he died, but it was in 95 when that happened in San Diego.
Oh my god, man. Dang. So, okay, well, back on the mental health issue.
Well, he was thinking about committing suicide. He had a friend, mental health.
Mental health issue,
that,
dude.
Yeah.
Like not to not to hit the nail right on the head, but like that's somebody. It's a really fine line to draw because the text of the amendment is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Like that to me, the text of that says you could be fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, dude. You still have the right to protect yourself. And I think that's sort of the basis of the right, is you have the right to protect yourself.
Yeah. And
if somebody else has a gun, you ought to at least be on an even playing field with your biggest threat. So, to me, that's a kind of part of the sentiment of it, not the... It's the letter of the law and the sentiment of the law, or the heart of the law. I forgot what the term was that we learned in law school, but it was there's like the letter of the law, which is the exact text, and then there's like kind of like the sentiment of it, you know, like take speeding laws for example. Obviously, the speeding laws, you don't fucking speed. You see the posted speed limit, you don't speed. But if your wife is pregnant and she's about to give birth, you are allowed to do 90 in a 55.
Throw them hazards on, boy. Get her to the hospital.
Yeah, and even a cop pulls you over. Sir, do you know she is giving birth? Oh my God! Let me get you there. Hold on, buddy. Let me get you there. And that's when
you
you get an escort. You duck the ticket and all that kind of stuff. So I think and that's like that was what we were given as the example of the sentiment versus the letter of the law. And so the letter of it is that people can keep and bear arms, and that goes from everything from a billy club to potentially a bazooka or a cannon. We'll talk about bazookas and cannons here in a minute because I think bazookas are another interesting
chain gun.
I think minigun mounted.
Well, shit, man,
Mounted
they
on
had
a helicopter
those.
To take out.
They had those fucking those fucking things.
Yeah.
But I think those were instituted. Those came out more in the early mid 1800s. But in the same token, you got to think that's covered by it.
Yeah.
Like that's covered by it. But the mental health issue, like I think it's not just the diagnosis that counts, because like somebody could be diagnosed with a mental health disorder.
It really comes down more to awareness and proper instruction with how to handle firearms properly and safely.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they've never shot guns before, or they've never really been around, or they've never really been shown how to go about it. So, I mean, for a lot of people who've never done this, yeah, it seems like a scary thing. I mean, you see it in movies and you think, oh, that's just military, just police, that's fine. But, I mean, for example, say, your house is being broken into. You never know how long the response time is going to take for police to get there. So, I mean, are you really going to feel comfortable having, a kitchen knife or
Texas
or a
suburb
baseball
average
bat?
time is 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Texas suburb average time is 4 minutes. So, and trust me, it does not take 4 minutes. It don't take long at all for somebody breaking into your house to find you and kill you.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. And yeah, I think you are right. You number one, you hit the nail right on the head. Now let me ask you this: do you think that people? So we have the right to keep and bear arms in Texas is if you have it in your house or your car, you buy the gun and that's it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to do anything else. Like that's it. You don't have to register it in Texas or anything like that. You just can't, without the proper licensure, you can't go out, you can't holster it in public, you can't conceal carry it in public.
There's a slew of laws that go into effect as far as going into like public businesses and public places.
Yeah, and like some places have a 30-06, a 30-7, which says no open carry, no concealed carry, that kind of stuff. Which how they would know you were concealed carrying,
I was just about to say.
Don't understand, but not the point. Point being,
keister it.
Yeah, can you imagine that? You guys just like, freeze, buddy.
The M134 General Electric Minigun, according to the National Firearms Act, any fully automatic weapon made before 1986 is fair game to civilians.
Ooh.
Yeah, fully automatic firearm. That's right there, buddy.
Christmas lists coming up.
Yeah, right. Can you imagine that?
Legally own a Gatling gun.
Okay.
See,
Maybe a little bit.
I don't know. That's the thing, is like I feel this national pride. I'm like, that's my country. If I want to own a goddamn chain gun and remake that scene from Terminator, I can.
I just want to get a tattoo of a bald eagle right on your chest with the flag right on.
It is carrying a chain gun just in its claws. Now let me ask this. Let me pose this question. So we have the conceal license and your license to carry and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that, not do you think how it ought to be, but do you think that making whatever citizen in question that wants to buy a gun, making them take the test first, and upon their passage of the test, allowing them to buy a firearm, do you think that infringes on the right here?
We're talking about the test to be able to open carry, public.
Yeah, that's it. Because you have a shooting test, you have to field strip it.
Okay.
I've done my research in what it takes to get one of these licenses, and it's essentially it's an 8-hour class followed by a written test based on the material in the class. You have to field strip your gun and be able to put it back together, and then you have to be able you have to pass a shooting test.
Okay.
Or the bold-faced points of it. So taking that test prior to merely being able to purchase.
Okay, so not open, not open carry, but concealed carry.
Open or conceal, either one, because they're essentially the same test.
It would definitely benefit the prospective buyer to take these classes or take this test in order to be better acquainted with their firearm, and then on top of it, as soon as they got done with the test, they'd be able to go out in public, open carry, concealed carry, whatever, just as long as they're familiar with the laws. However,
that is part of it too.
Yeah,
is part of the class is the state laws pertaining to your.
So I mean, there is that. However, at the same time, some people, that's not what they want to do. They want to just be able to keep it in their property. That's all they have in mind, and in which case they should have the option to purchase a firearm for that particular purpose. And if they want to either educate themselves, whether YouTube, looking stuff up online,
in the modern age, that is a potential. That is a possibility.
Or even taking classes on your own time, as opposed to having to take a test to be able to carry it in public. It really depends on what the person buying the gun wants to do. Yeah.
And see, personally, I realize I posed the question. I personally think that making that a requirement serves as a kind of a block to being able to purchase it, so it does infringe. You have the potential for one person failing and thus unable to buy a firearm. So I think in a sense it does infringe on the text of the right. However, what you just said was some people, that's just not what they want to do. Yeah. You take into account rural inhabitants, people, farmers, ranchers, people who, let's say you have a rancher who their family has been in the cattle ranch business for 5 generations. Yeah. Now, cattle ranching and all the skills that pertain to that are going to be passed down. It would also kind of fit that handling a firearm for, whether it's shooting coyotes. Yeah. You got to think, like, when you're in a rural part of the country, it's urban threats like robbers and burglars and shit like that are not your main threat. You got to think about your stock, your livestock. Coyotes, wolves, etc. You got to be able to defend them, and I imagine the patriarch or the head of the household in that context would sort of pass down the skills. This is how you spot coyotes. This is a gun you use for this, a gun you use for that, etc. and so forth. So I do totally see the route of not having a license to conceal carry when you're a farmer or a rancher. You don't really need that. You're going to be carrying a rifle on your back. Yeah. And looking out for the threats to your livestock or something like that. Plus, like I said, suburbs, Texas, 4-minute response time for the cops. Rural parts of Texas, it could be up to 10, 15 minutes if somebody's breaking onto your property. And they
enough time.
Oh, dude.
Plenty of time.
That is more than enough time. I mean, I said 4 minutes was enough time. And 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, oh yeah, man. You gotta consider shit like that. So I
couldn't remember if it was a former Navy SEAL that I heard it from. They were saying people that want to come for your stuff will come during the day. People that want to come for you will come at night.
That's interesting.
I can see how there could be some exceptions.
Oh, of course.
But just get kept in mind because everybody's typically asleep. Just not a whole lot of eyes on you.
That's actually why the legal definition of burglary entails breaking and entering at night. Yeah. Is because when you're at night, you're asleep, you're assumed, everything's fine. Humans sleep at night. So, that's an interesting point though. If they want your stuff, they're going to come during the day, like when you're out, like at work or something like that.
And brought up some stuff on the psychological side of things.
Oh, what you got?
I went straight to Texas because...
Oh, yeah. A person is eligible for a license to carry a handgun if the person is not a chemically dependent person and is not incapable of exercising sound judgment with respect to the proper use and storage of a handgun. A person is incapable of exercising sound judgment with respect to the proper use and storage of a handgun if the person has been diagnosed by a licensed physician as suffering from a psychiatric disorder or condition that causes or is likely to cause substantial impairment in judgment, mood, perception, impulse control, or intellectual ability, or suffers from a psychiatric disorder or condition that is in remission but is reasonably likely to redevelop at a future time, or requires continuous medical treatment to avoid redevelopment. And the last one is has been diagnosed by a licensed physician determined by a review board or similar authority or declared by a court to be incompetent to manage the person's own affairs or has entered in a criminal proceeding plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. So if you are pleading insanity, that actually gives up your right to own a firearm, regardless of what the nature of the crime in question for which you're pleading insanity is. That's an interesting point because even then there's gray area. There's a lot of gray area. So I imagine that ADHD wouldn't be your